Welcome back to Higher Level Gaming. I'm Rob.
And I'm Katie.
And today we're doing some more of our podcast series where we're going to talk about different topics more in depth. And today we're going to be asking ourselves the question, 2 years later, is the Nintendo Switch worth it? So is it? Oh, you gonna find out? Nintendo Switch. So we've had our Nintendo Switch for about a year now, and honestly, I haven't gotten as much use out of it as I would have liked, but recently I've definitely been using it more. Like since November, since I got Pokemon Let's Go, I've definitely put way more hours into the Switch, and it's been my everyday console, as opposed to like from the period of like March till August almost, it was like just dead, like no Switch usage almost.
Yeah, it was expensive. And then we bought Zelda. You actually played Zelda though, didn't you? Well, honestly, it didn't really seem worth it at first because there was like very few games for the Switch. I think there was like Breath of the Wild and then Super Mario, but like unless you were really like a Zelda fan, which I wasn't really particularly, like it was just Super Mario and that was cool.
Odyssey you mean, right?
Yeah, so yeah, I liked Odyssey, but I actually didn't play too much of it, and I didn't really play Zelda at all because I wasn't really a fan and I was never really into the series. So it kind of was like those were the only two games on Switch, like two big main titles. So at first it didn't really seem worth it. Like it kind of just sat there and I was like, wow, this is very expensive system I bought that has very few games that I'm interested in, and it kind of sucked. But now,
and keep in mind, we bought the Switch like a year after it released too, so like that's like a ways out.
Yeah.
And they did have some like first party games, like Donkey Kong Country Freeze was another game that came out this year. And, of course, Mario Kart, that's a game that was ported over from the Wii U.
Yeah.
There were a lot of good games ported from the Wii U, but there weren't a lot of games that were made specifically for the Switch that were Nintendo games. It was really just Odyssey and Breath of the Wild, like Katie said. So those were our bread and butter with the Switch, and then once we kind of lost interest in those, and once I beat Zelda, we kind of just, like, stopped using it for a big amount of time.
Yeah. And I feel like now it's a lot more worth it. I wasn't even excited really for Smash because, again, sadly, a game that I had not really played in the past.
Right, Katie didn't even know. She didn't even know how glorious.
I didn't really get the hype. Like, I was like, alright, it looks fun, but like, yeah. But when we actually got it and started playing it, it was like amazing.
Right,
like,
so obviously, if you get a Nintendo Switch, you gotta get Smash Brothers.
Yeah.
That's like every time you go on the gaming subreddit on Reddit now, because that's where we usually like browse when we're just using social media. We usually browse Reddit. If you go to the gaming subreddit on Reddit, there's all these people like, oh, I was on the plane and the dude next to me had a Switch. We played Switch. It was Switch. Ah, like people are really starting. The hype for the Switch now is at the height, I think, since the Switch came out. It was like originally there was like the big wave with Zelda Breath of the Wild, which honestly I don't even understand now that I've finished the game. I didn't think it was as amazing as, you know, to necessitate that huge wave of good press for the console. But then, you know, this year with Pokemon and then of course Smash, there was like a huge wave. It was like much bigger than I think even the Breath of the Wild reception. So that's really what's going to propel the Switch into this next year. So yeah, the Switch is worth it now. There's like a lot of good games. There's a lot of first party games that were made specifically for the Switch. So it's worth it as far as the games go. But let's consider another aspect, right? We've had the console for a year. There's going to supposedly be some new iterations of the Switch now coming out this next year. That could either be like a Switch Lite or a Switch Plus, which would be like a better, more, you know, powerful Switch, potentially with like a bigger screen or a higher definition screen, maybe a better battery life. You know, if that Switch comes out this year, do you think it'll still have been worth it?
Yeah, I really feel like it's really too soon because like when it first came out, we didn't have a lot of games. And right now we're still like awaiting pretty big Nintendo titles. Like we got Pokemon, but what about the new Pokemon that's supposed to be coming out? Like,
yeah,
what
that
about
Pokemon Let's Go was a
Animal
remake.
Crossing?
It was
Like,
a remake at the end of the day. You have to remember.
Like, what about Metroid that was, like, announced forever and I've been patiently waiting for? Like, there's already a new Switch when those games haven't even got a chance to come out. And those are, like, huge games. Like, I don't know. If I would have known that, I might have just waited.
Right. Nintendo is also notorious, too, like, with the whole Game Boy. There was, like, a bunch of iterations of the Game Boy, and then, like, the Game Boy SP, and then, of course, you had the Game Boy Advance, and then, of course, after that, I think, came the DS. And the DS, there's been, like, 5-6 versions of the DS.
Yeah, I remember there was the DS, and then there was, like, the DS Lite, and I was lucky enough to get the DS Lite. But then after the DS Lite, I'm pretty sure something else
yeah,
came
and then
out.
something else comes out, and you're like, fuck, my DS sucks now. Like, I don't want to be the guy that has the shitty Switch, of course, but I think, honestly, that's always how it's going to be with this kind of product. I think when it comes to Nintendo handhelds, which the Switch is at the end of the day, you have to consider it like you consider the iPhone. Like, yeah, you can wait till next year to get the newest version of the iPhone, but if you do that every year, you'll just be waiting for infinity until you get your iPhone. Like, you have to eventually be like, alright, this is the generation of iPhone I'm going to get. So, for me, honestly, is it worth it considering, like, would I buy one now? I think if you buy one now, it will be worth it because, again, there are all these people playing Smash. That's, like, a huge game. There's also now the online service and more games coming out this new year. Animal Crossing is supposed to be coming out. And, of course, like, the new Pokemon game. So, if you don't have a Switch and you are considering buying one, is it worth it now to buy one? I think, yeah, it's worth it to buy one. But if you do want to get the new model and you think, you know, maybe there's only a couple games where you just want to play, you know, a game that's not out yet for the Switch, maybe if you're just like a hardcore Pokemon, like, mainline series fan and you don't care about Let's Go and you don't have a Switch yet, you don't need one until the newer hardware comes out, because when the newer hardware comes out, that'll probably be around the same time as the next Pokemon. But if you're not waiting for a game and you just want to be able to play Smash or anything like that, yeah, now is the perfect time, if you ask me, to get a Switch. And it's the perfect time because, like I said, everyone's playing it now. There's tournaments going on. It's the game right now, is Super Smash Brothers. So you want to get on that train when it's hot, right?
Yeah. I feel like with most game systems, like, I usually want to wait like a good year or so.
Which we did.
So,
we waited a year,
like,
so
I don't think the Switch would have been, like, as worth it if you went out and bought it at release, because it was, like, nothing out at that time. But now there's tons of stuff on the Switch, like, some things, you know, like, if you're into JRPGs, like, there's
Xenoboobies,
a lot.
Octopath Traveler, a lot more. And there's a lot of indies, too. That's the other thing. Nintendo has turned it around with the third-party games this generation. With the Wii, you didn't see a lot, like, even on the GameCube, I don't think, you didn't see a lot of third-party games.
Yeah.
You didn't see a lot of games that were on every platform, and you're starting to see that again. You're seeing Doom, you're seeing Wolfenstein, these are both Bethesda games, but you're seeing other games ported to the Switch that you normally wouldn't expect, and these are current generation games. Which also brings us to the hardware aspects of the console. Is it worth it on a hardware perspective? And for that, again, there's going to be a new one, so the hardware is going to be better soon. But I think it's worth it because the games look good. Super Mario Odyssey, it looks good. Breath of the Wild, it looks amazing. It looks so good.
Yeah, I gotta say, like, playing handheld and then playing, like, on your screen at home, like, both of them look great. It doesn't really feel like a huge, like, difference in performance or, you know, like, quality when you switch over to, like, big screen versus small
No, definitely
screen.
not. In fact, even using it handheld, I really don't mind. The graphics are always good, if you ask me. And, you know, you have the advantage of it being handheld. You can take that shit anywhere you want, whereas you don't have that with the other consoles. But the hardware is passable, and it's playing games of this generation, and it's doing a good job of it. So, you know, I'm going to give them a pass and say, yes, it is worth it from a hardware perspective. And that brings us to the last category, which is, of course, in comparison to the other consoles on the market. If you're not, you know, money bags over here, you're not going to be able to have every console. So maybe you can only afford one of the generation, and the generation's going to end soon. So what console are you going to buy? Is it going to be the PS4, the Switch, or the Xbox One? What do you think? Do you think the Switch is worth it when you consider it against its competitors?
I think if I didn't already have a PS4, then I would have got a PS4. Because, like, let's just be honest, like, I think they completely killed it with all the games that came out, like, 2018. Like, there was a lot of huge titles. Like, so, if I had to make the choice, I would choose the PS4.
Yeah, honestly, is it worth it compared to PS4? I'm going to have to say no this time. Because PS4, yeah, we're talking about how Nintendo has all these great exclusives, but PS4 does too, and with PS4, you're not going to have to pay $60 a pop for these.
Yeah.
With Nintendo, you're never going to really pay less than $60 for any of these games, especially not these games that came out this generation. You're just not. You're going to have to pay full price no matter what. If you get a PS4 today, though, you can probably get Bloodborne for under $20. You can probably get Uncharted for around the same price. There is a catalog of games that are just as good as Mario Odyssey, just as good as Breath of the Wild, that you can get for a really cheap price. And, you know, that's at the end of the day, what we're talking about when it comes to the Switch is how good the games are. But PS4 has the best games of any console.
They got those triple A's.
Those triple A's, like seriously, triple A's. God of War, there is nothing on the Switch that looks anything like God of War. We gave the hardware for the Switch a pass, but honestly, compared to the other hardware, the Switch is a children's toy compared to the PS4.
Yeah.
It can't handle the graphics. It can't do what the PS4 can do. Now, as a little addendum to that, if you're someone who primarily plays games on your phone or someone who primarily plays games on the go, then I think the Switch might be more worth it than the PS4, because if you do live a really active lifestyle, you're never at home to play your games. You're always, you know, either in transit, maybe you take Uber a lot, maybe you take the train a lot, maybe you're just constantly at work, maybe you work as a security guard or something, so you don't have time at home to play, then yeah, the Switch is the one to go with, because they do have great games and it's a portable console. You don't have that with the PS4.
Right.
But head to head, straight up.
Yeah, if you want to, like, sit back and play, like, a single story game, like, you want to play, like, Spider-Man or, like, Far Cry, like, you can't really get those kind of games on this Switch.
I mean, you can. There's a lot of great RPG single-player titles on the Switch, but I think Sony has more great exclusives. They have the amazing ones.
They have the biggest ones,
They have the biggest ones. Marvel, Spider-Man, God of War, again, these were, in our opinion, two of the, like, best games of the year. Smash was also one of the best games of the year. But PS4 has a stronger catalog, in our opinion.
Yeah, and Kingdom Hearts is finally coming out, but
Kingdom Hearts, like, that's not going to be on the Switch, I don't think, at first. It might be ported, though. We don't know, because Switch is getting a lot of great games. So, honestly, I think Kingdom Hearts will come to Switch eventually, but we don't know. So, at the end of the day, babe, when you consider everything, what do you think? Is the Switch worth it?
I think the Switch is worth it. If you don't have a PS4.
If you don't have a PS4.
If you have a PS4, I mean. If you have a PS4.
If you have a PS4, yeah. Well, yeah, I think the Switch is worth it. Even if you don't have a PS4, maybe you're just, like, more into the Nintendo games.
Yeah.
I can give you that. If maybe you're a really hardcore Zelda fan, maybe you love how family-friendly Nintendo's games are, and the fact that every single Nintendo game is so polished and there aren't any bugs or anything like that, then I can totally understand why you would go with the Nintendo over the PS4. But, yeah, the Nintendo Switch 2 years later, it's worth it.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Well, thank you guys so much for watching. This has been part of our podcast series. This is the second Higher Level podcast, where we're going to talk about a bunch of different gaming topics and upload the different segments. Eventually, we plan to upload to Patreon. But until then, why don't you go ahead and subscribe and stick around. And if you want, share this video and like it. Also, don't forget to go play some video games, and have a nice day, guys.
This eye is not merely seeing reality, it is touching the truth.